Hello everyone and welcome to ADVMoto Live number 10. We've got a great show tonight. The American motorcycle culture has evolved a lot in the past 10 years. One of the most notable changes, aside from the tremendous growth of the adventure market, is the shift towards smaller, more practical bikes. The merits of lighter, less powerful bikes with skinnier price tags speak for themselves, but one brand in particular has really come on strong in the past 5 years and in many ways redefined both value and style in American motorcycles. Tonight, we talk about the challenges of Royal Enfield, an exciting update on the Himalayan, and meet a young man breaking a world record on one. Stay tuned. All right, our first guest tonight joins us from Milwaukee, where she is the driving force behind the rise of Royal Enfield, both in North America and abroad. Having been tasked with bringing a fresh face to the company when they launched in the United States in 2015, many of you may have met her at one of the many test ride events that they've been putting on around the country. Everyone, please welcome Bri Poland. How's it going, Bree? How you doing?
Doing good, Carl. Thanks for having me on. I always love chatting with you.
Oh, yeah, man. It's awesome to talk with you all the time. So you are up in Milwaukee. How are things going on up there?
Oh, well, a little bit of a pandemic, a little bit of everything else. We've been working from home since March 12th, adjusting to the always being at home environment when normally, as you know, I'm always on the road doing events across, the world. And yeah, I'm ready to get back on the road again.
Well, right on. So for those of us that may not know you or what you do, can you give us a general background on what you do over there at Royal Enfield?
Sure. So I am currently the head of marketing and communications for Royal Enfield Americas. So I look over everything from Canada all the way down into Argentina. I develop the marketing strategies, how we work with consumers and potential customers, do all the press releases, do all the demo programs, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I did develop the retail environment program, but I'm passing that off to another coworker because it's just getting a little too hard for me to handle right now.
Wow, yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of work, especially when you're covering that much geographic area. That's bonkers. Do you have any stress management tips on how you deal with that?
Medication, lots of it.
Yeah.
No sleep, Carl.
Yeah, boy, when you carry that much responsibility, sleeping is a luxury, isn't it?
I miss those days. I do. Yeah. Someday.
Well, yeah, just gotta try and get some whenever you can, right? Yeah, awesome. So let's go back a little bit. Before you started Royal Enfield, I mean, how did you get involved in motorcycling, and what was your first bike?
Oh, I don't, to be honest, and I saw that you wanted to ask me that question. I don't even remember really what my first bike was. I had a lot of borrowed bikes and a lot of gifted and loaned bikes throughout my life. So if you were to ask me what first bike I owned officially, it was a BBR 50, one that I actually bought myself. I've been in the motorcycle industry since I was around 18 or 19 years old. Anyone that knows me knows that I got into road racing through professional modeling, and everyone, people always question, so you're an umbrella girl? Absolutely. And I have no shame in that. I was able to travel the US and be around motorcycle racing and really get to know the ins and outs of motorcycles. By the time I left the road racing paddock, I had owned my own team. We had won many successful championships. Wow. And then I had moved part-time to Spain with Melissa Paris to help her in her Spanish pursuit of winning a championship or trying to win a championship in the Spanish CEV championship. And then Royal Enfield called me and said they were opening up offices in North America and wanted to know if I wanted to be part of it. And I didn't hesitate.
Oh, wow. That's pretty intense. Yeah. So coming off of the off the paddock and stuff as a as a model, I mean, when did you actually decide that standing around and stuff is cool, but it's time for me to get in the saddle on this,
I think I had been with the same team for a long time, and I was in college, and I started asking the team owner to give me more responsibilities. So I had said, hey, I really want to take over, public relations and communications and the event planning and, branching out, and he trusted me with all that, and it kind of just went from there. And then I would say about 7 years after being with that team, I was approached to help manage the Geico Buell factory team with Danny Eslick and Michael Barnes. And you can't say no to that. So Richie Morris owned the team. I managed the team. Danny won the championship that year. And then after that, a private investor said, hey, I think you need to be a team, your own team owner. I'll back you. I would love to see a woman own her own program. So that's kind of how it started. And with that, I think we won 3 championships when I had my own team. And then sponsorships got tight. We lost our prime coverage on what at the time was Speed TV. So my title sponsor, which was Riders Discount, offered to buy out all of the equipment that we had and take over the team. And then I stayed on to manage it for about a year. And then Melissa decided she wanted to shift from racing in the United States full-time to racing in Spain full-time. And it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Wow. So how did you enjoy Spain? We were over there for a brief time, doing some junkets and stuff. And man, what a different culture in terms of motorcycling.
It's not even a culture
than the US.
I guess it's a culture, but it's part of your life. There's so many motorcycles. Yeah. People grow up, on scooters and motorcycles, and it's not a hobby. It's their life. It's integrated into every aspect of everything that they do. You walk into a gas station and they are selling motorcycle replicas. They've got Marc Marquez and, Jorge Lorenzo plastered everywhere. You can't help but be a motorcyclist living in Spain. There's just no choice. So it's completely different to the culture that we have here in the US, where motorcycling is, for the most part, a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. But you enjoyed your time over there?
I adore Spain. I think at this point I've probably been to Spain 20 times through my travels with Melissa or for work now. And I guess you could say it's like my second home. I still travel with her. She now races World Endurance. So when I can take vacation time, I travel with Melissa to Spain and France when she's racing on the World FIM World Endurance team. So I still go over there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And which part of Spain were you in?
Every place that has a racetrack. Albacete, Alicante, Barcelona, everywhere.
Almeria.
Yep. Every single. I've been to every racetrack in Spain. Yeah.
Wow. So you've been really just. I mean, speaking of travel, you've been crazy busy traveling around the United States and the world, really promoting not just the Himalayan, but a lot of the other Royal Enfield models as well. Most notably, the twins, most recently. And I would probably say that out of all the factory reps, you're the most like on the front line in terms of just like, you want to get out there and you want to meet people in person. And it seems like you don't really want to put a wall up between you and the Royal Enfield rider. So, what is your philosophy about marketing a brand like Royal Enfield, and do you see it working?
I see it working. Obviously, our sales keep growing every year, and it's because of the product. And I do think it's the personal approach. We are a small enough brand where we can interact with consumers. We can have really great relationships with our dealers. We can do things that are kind of off the grid or the normal way of thinking. I mean, when you came to our Himalayan launch, we had what I thought was a lot different motorcycle launch than a lot of manufacturers do. And I want to distinguish Royal Enfield from, I want to separate Royal Enfield from everybody else and show them that all the positive aspects about Royal Enfield and how fun and involved that Royal Enfield can be in it. It's not just one aspect of your life. You can include it into everything that you do. So that's why when I did the launch, we had so many other activities going on to show you that motorcycles can be part of everything that you do, from getting to work to going to the shooting range to jet boats or whatever it is. Like you can take your Himalayan or your Royal Enfield on that. I mean, granted, you could take any motorcycle there, but I'm not there to promote other motorcycles. I'm there to promote Royal Enfield. And the reason I go to events, Carl, is I love hearing consumer feedback, whether it's a potential consumer or customer or someone that, maybe had some negative insight on the brand. I can sit there and I can talk them through, the the upgrades in manufacturing responsibilities, our UK tech center, our amazing product strategy and industrial design team, and all the things that we're doing to truly make Royal Enfield a global brand. It's a lot easier for me to do that and be authentic than just the normal traditional ways of, just doing the website or just doing advertisements. It's really getting in there and talking to customers. And I feel, I'm very active on all the Royal Enfield forums. I love hearing their insight. I love conversing with them. Sometimes I don't like what they have to say, but I love hearing that they have opinions and where we can work better as a brand to help, our current customer base out.
That's cool. Is there some example, maybe like in particular, of something that you learned from the community that you wouldn't have otherwise?
That they really want a 650 Himalayan.
Yeah, we already have questions about that.
Sure.
There was a couple of people saying infamously unknown says, what is the word for getting the great 650cc in the Himalayan? The 411 cannot survive on the modern highways of the United States. And I know that this is a question that's been around for a long time.
I get it every day.
I think, yeah. So I mean, is there an official scoop on that? Like it's just straight up not happening, or maybe who knows?
You know better, Carl, and you know that I can't talk about any potential or potential future product. But we are seeing We are seeing people ask for a 650. We do see it. Our CEO sees it. Our managing director sees it. Our industrial design team sees it. We all see it. But that's all I can say about that now.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think if it pops up on the radar somewhere, I think everyone else will be happy.
If it pops up, it's thanks to you guys for continuously in our ear about it every day. But I have no update on that.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So there are some updates though coming to the Himalayan, it's had a couple of different versions. I think maybe the first one we didn't really get here right away, right? That one was released just in India.
So it's not even set to come to the US. And I think you and I and Rod talked about that when we met you in Texas, is they had no plans to bring it to the US. Their plan was to make a motorcycle meant to ride in the Himalayas. And, when all of us saw it, we said, no, you absolutely need to bring it. That is definitely a global product. And it took a while for us to convince them to do it. So it took us about 2 years after the launch in India to finally be able to bring it to North America. March of 2018, to be exact.
Oh, right on. And then by that time, how many updates and revisions had been done? And this is another question. What are the differences in a bike between a model that is suitable for sale in India or say overseas in general, and one that would be suitable for sale in the United States? I mean, this is a kind of a question where people say, well, why do they do that here but not here, kind of thing like that,
So different laws and regulations. We have to have a different kind of exhaust. Our windscreen has to be different. Our headlight has to be different. So we can't launch the same product that India does. And I don't think a lot of people realize that is what is legal and allowed in India is not necessarily allowed in Europe and North America. So we do have to make provisions to be able to sell a product here. And when they originally launched the Himalayan in India, it was carbureted. And you can't sell on-road motorcycles, carbureted on-road motorcycles anymore. You have to have UCE current products. So there's a lot of things that we had to work with the factory in the back end to ensure that they were able to do in order to deliver a bike that was suitable for the US. There have been some upgrades that we have introduced. So when we came to the market, we had no ABS. And then last year we released the model with ABS. It was not switchable. And I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this because India and Europe have already launched it, but there is a refreshed Himalayan. We are bringing that to the US. Unfortunately, with closures of the factories in India due to COVID and everything like that, the release keeps getting delayed because if the factories close, we can't produce motorcycles. And it's out of our control at that point. But we are going to bring in the refreshed Himalayan that everyone is seeing. So the red, the blue, the gray, that's all going to be available. It will be an adjusted kickstand. some other features that are upgraded, and it'll have switchable ABS. So you can choose to switch it on or off. So those are some of the upgrades that are coming. I just can't tell you definitively when, because that really just determines when India is going to be able to open again and produce the motorcycles for our market.
Right on, right on. Yeah, so we have
send you one to play with.
Awesome. You know, I love the toys.
You do.
You know, the one I especially love is the this one.
I figured I already had that clocked aside for you, so don't worry. I knew because of the build that you did that you had to have the red one.
Oh, I love you, Bree. And then we've got this, and we have this beautiful. This is called Lake Blue. Is that right?
And then rock gray, and there. Oh, that's sleet. Yeah.
Sleet.
So we'll still have that. So that will be upgraded. So we're not getting rid of the white, the sleet, the black. It will have the upgrades available as well.
Right on. And then that's gravel.
Gravel gray.
Right? Yeah, gravel gray. Now in all these pictures, we're seeing a catalytic converter on the exhaust pipe. Will we have that?
So you're seeing the India version. So
all these
photos are the versions that are available in India. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so in India, I think they're calling it the BS6 for the Indian emission standards, which is what that is. But ours will still be a 4 version for the U.S. emission standards, but it will have all of the bells and whistles on there and stuff, right? Right on. That's awesome.
My fiance doing a weird walk behind you.
Right on. He's doing the backside shuffle. Yeah, that's right. Well, awesome. Yeah. So if we have this new bike, is there going to be a price change?
There will be an incremental price change, not much. I have not divulged pricing, or we have not publicly yet. So just stay tuned on that. Usually we don't we don't do that until we know that the motorcycles are on the water and ready to ship, and wait for the official press release.
Very cool. Yeah, I was just trying to dig around and do some research, on the bike, and I guess there were some guys that were in India, and they had done some nice video, and they talked about. I guess they already had a chance to ride it.
Now for a couple months in other countries for sure.
Yeah, well, he said something, and because I don't know if this is true, but he mentioned something about the transmission feeling crisp. Have there been any other changes to the model? There was that, and then there was a kickstand, I think, in the press release. The kickstand has been redesigned or something.
Kickstand is amazing, and you have a Himalayan, so I know what your thoughts and everyone else's thoughts are on the Himalayan. The kickstand, the Himalayan is definitely shorter, or the kickstand is definitely shorter on that. And
right on.
And I feel bad for not knowing this, but I have rode the new refresh version because I might have a couple here in the US right now, and it is very smooth shifting. Very.
Okay. Well,
you'll like it.
Okay, that's
you'll
good.
Like it.
Awesome. So we can unofficially there you go. So we can unofficially confirm that there have been some modifications made.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the transmission. Well, that's awesome.
It's a smoother ride. You don't. I think as a company grows, or as you have a product and you have to do upgrades, you look at the whole product and not just releasing. Just for us, it's not just changing the color. It's looking at the things that maybe there could have been modifications or something, right? So it was taking the whole motorcycle itself and saying, what can we improve as a whole, as a refresh product? Well, I will tell you, the current Himalayan, we're completely sold out in the US. We have one Himalayan left in the warehouse. To this day, for 2 years, it's been our top seller. It's still selling more than the Twins are.
Wow.
I think that this motorcycle has helped push people into the ADV segment. I really do. And, having partnerships with people like you and, your love and affection for the brand and your promotion of it, I think that really helps. It gives us credibility, because not everyone always wants to believe what the brand has to say. So when you build relationships like we have with you, I think it really helps.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, we're hardcore believers in a range of bikes, and that you need more bikes because you need more bikes if you want more riders in terms of being able to appeal to different people. That's so important. And I feel like over the past 20 years, maybe say like traditional genres of American motorcycling pigeonholed people, either into you're either sport bike, you're either motocross, or you're, your V twin, or you're sort of whatever, and that's why I said, like, really having Royal Enfield bring out some of these things, I think added a really nice splash of diversity to what was available on, in the landscape of the market.
And I feel as a way that like the brand helped encourage other OEMs to think just outside of the larger CC segment and encourage them to say, or to think like, hey, there's a whole group of people that we could touch if we had a motorcycle that was less expensive, that was accessible and easier to work on. And I feel like Royal Enfield helped that movement for sure.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. So when you talk about people in the Himalayan community, I mean, I've been following that too, and I'm part of it too myself. I've related some experiences to you as well about I actually pulled up into a barbecue joint, and a older woman came out, and she actually started crying because her father, and she was English, and her father rode a Himalayan like in the 1920s or something, and that's. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. A Royal Enfield, and she couldn't believe that she could even see, like the badge emblem, like in front of her, because that was one of the fondest memories she had of her father. And that's not necessarily a direct rider, but it does kind of go to show, what heritage, means, and the kind of value that it has. And also how close motorcycling is to people.
Yeah, I always tell Royal Enfield owners when I meet them, or when people are, interested in buying the brand, is be prepared to be pulled over or yelled at a stoplight or sit in a parking lot and talk to someone for 20 minutes, because Royal Enfield does that. It ignites conversations. It brings back memories. When I was riding the Classic 500 before we introduced, the Himalayan and the twins, is I would get pulled over all the time. I'm like, officer, I wasn't speeding. Like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I want to know how old your bike is. It's in immaculate condition. And how long did it take you to restore that? And I'm like, okay, have a seat on the curb. Let me talk to you about Royal Enfield. And this is my 2018 Classic, and I didn't have to restore it. So I actually enjoy it, but I also warn customers and potential customers, like, you are going to have a lot of conversations, and you're going to have a lot of questions. And and some of them have come back to me and shared like some stories with me over time, and it's really good to hear that.
Yeah, one of the things that I think has the attraction to it is, I remember, shortly after I got it, and I was just kind of riding around, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, I was like, one of my appeals of the Himalayan is that it's almost like a schizophrenic bike. Like in a sense that, like, you sit on it and you're like, what am I riding? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a dual sport. It's kind of a cruiser, but ultimately in the end, and this is what I love about it, and I think this is why they've sold out and they're successful, the Himalayan is the Himalayan. There's nothing else like it on the market. I think probably the closest thing that it started to compete with was the KLR 650, just in terms of, like when people were looking at, well, like, should I buy a new or used KLR or a Himalayan? People, it's just like, well, the Himalayan's lines are not aggressive, and the seat is much lower, and then you're also getting into a new bike, and then there's the whole sort of look to it too. But on a personal level, and I think this is what drives the curiosity for people, straight up coming out of gas stations, coming out of gas stations, coming out of whatever, like restaurants, whatever it is, they will come out and look at the Himalayan before they'll go look at a sport bike. And I think that is that's a true sign of an actually unique design. And I think that the guys should be proud of that. The guys that put it together, right?
Yeah, and you met Pradeep Matthew at the Himalayan launch, and he was an integral part of the design and the product development of the motorcycle. And he loves, he's probably watching this right now over in India, but I think they did a really good job. I'm absolutely in love with the Himalayan.
Right on. Yeah, and I think a lot of other people too. So when are we going to be able to see the new version of the Himalayan? I mean, is that sort of, or is there a rough estimate by the end of the year, or?
Definitely before the end of the year. Well, and again, this I guess I can't say definitely because it really depends on the status of the pandemic. The factories in India reopened only to be shut down again because they saw a surge in cases. Now they're the country with the fourth highest amount of cases in the world, and they're shutting everything down again. So that means the factory is not going to be able to produce those motorcycles. And when the factory produces something, they have lines for when international motorcycles are produced, right? So outside of India, because India obviously sells the motorcycles, and then they have to be put on a container, and then they're sent over in a ship, and that takes 2 to 3 months depending, and then they have to be PDI'd because we have the PDI center in Texas, and then sent out to dealers. So it's not tomorrow, unfortunately. It's not in July, unfortunately. We were hoping to be able to bring them the refresh Himalayas to the market in July, but that's just not going to happen now. No one could have guessed that we were going to have this worldwide pandemic, and it's just altered plans. I think right now it's really day by day. We keep the dealers updated. We keep the sales teams updated. We work, our after sales team and our operations team work with the factory and get updates as often as they can. But I'm hoping that the factory opens by the end of July and where we can get them in the September, October timeframe. But I don't want to make any promises. I don't like broken promises, but I'm hoping that, September, October timeframe.
Somewhere in there. So you're talking about early fall, or early mid-fall or something like that.
I still think it's still a riding season. So you could, depending if you're a fair weather rider. Wow, that took a lot to say. You could potentially get some riding in. We have customers up here in Milwaukee that ride throughout the winter. Like Chris Steele, one of our brand ambassadors, he rides in snow and ice and sleet on his Himalayan. He's kind of crazy though. But I hope we can salvage some of the riding season and get, the refresh Himalayan out there for people. I know people are already putting down deposits and really excited, especially because dealers are running out of stock of the current ones. So they really depend on that too. And for most dealers, the Himalayan's the top seller.
Yeah, right on. Now we've got a question here from a Himalayan, I guess, owner. Adventures with Farmer Troy, and it's a parts supply question. My question is the Texas parts warehouse shipping product? He ordered a touring seat in March through his dealer, and they don't know when it will arrive.
So the warehouse is open. They are shipping out orders. So basically they just go through the queue and get them out as quickly as possible. But they are shipping out orders. And we have a very small team, as you know, in the US, and they're doing the best they can right now. Dealers that have put in orders, they will be tended to, especially if the item's in stock. And I'll check and get back to you on the touring seat. If you want to give him my information, I can check to see if the touring stock is in the warehouse or it's on back order. But feel free to share him my email with him.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, let's see if Adventures with Farmer Troy, maybe see if you can send us a message separately.
And I'll definitely check into that, and also let me know what dealer it is.
Yeah, right on, awesome. And then we've got a couple. Giamoto Adventures is here in the audience tonight. It says the Himalayan blows me away. It goes everywhere. It's a tractor, and that is absolutely true. And then
that's Jesse Kimball. He's amazing.
Yeah. Good old Jesse. He actually made a skid plate, which I believe is in this series of images for the Project Himalayan. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about the aftermarket support for the Himalayan? Man, that just kind of that was fantastic. It just kind of really sprung up. Say within like a year, everybody just started really making stuff for it.
They are, but as an employee of Royal Enfield and a strong believer to support the brand, there are a lot of things that we do develop. So I would look at our product catalog first. If it's something that we don't manufacture or make, then definitely look around. But there are some great things. That's a nice Corbin seat, by the way, Carl. Those are expensive seats too.
It's comfortable.
We definitely have, a decent amount of GMA accessible for all our range of current products. So, as a brand supporter, is send an inquiry into a dealer. Tell them you want the hard bags. Tell your dealer what you want and have them order it. when there isn't a crazy pandemic happening and we're not trying to fulfill all, a million orders at once, we can usually get the dealer a customer order within a couple days, and that's in a normal situation. Obviously, we're not in a normal situation right now, but
sure.
Yeah,
right on. And Farmer Troy says, thanks for answering my question,
You're
Bree.
very welcome.
So he posts some appreciation.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
All right, so so we've got the Himalayan coming in. I mean, that's awesome and it's new. But also we very briefly want to touch on the twins, right? So during during your test ride extravaganza that you guys did all around the United States, which was awesome. They had one over here not too far from us, just across the border in West Virginia.
Summit Point Raceway.
Summit Point Raceway. What a great, beautiful weather. A lot of different people showed up. I mean, one thing I loved was seeing the bikes of the people that showed up. I mean, it was everything from, from street nakeds to cruisers to V-twins to gold wings to, I mean, all kinds of people showed up, to ride it. And you guys put on a top-notch show. But man, when I sat on the INT or the Interceptor, I was like, man, this thing could be scramblered out. I mean, it has real scrambler potential.
Yeah, yes, Carl. I know. I'm working on your agreement for that one next.
Can't get enough.
I know. There's so many possibilities of customization, whether you just add a few, aftermarket like Royal Enfield accessories on it, or if you just go big. I think the chassis and the engine for the Royal Enfield twins is a really good base starting point. And, just doing, I don't know if you saw, but I just showed a scrambler build that one of our dealers in Marnie, Iowa did. We posted it on our social media the other day, and didn't cost a lot of money, but he turned it into a scrambler and it looks great and it sounds great and it rides great. The chassis and the engine are really good.
Yeah, I mean, if someone is, no, here's a question. If someone really is itching for the 650 twin engine and to take it off-road, would you say that getting in, like an Interceptor and then modifying it would be a reasonable option, or do you think that would be cool with certain limitations, or what?
Well, I'm not a bike builder, but I do know that the guy that built the scrambler, Jeremy Pendergrass from Baxter Cycles, he put a complete Himalayan front end on the frame of the INT. So the full front end fits perfectly. He didn't have to make any crazy modifications, so it does fit and it works really well.
Wow, so the whole thing just slaps right onto the head tube? Oh, that's sick. And then how about the rear shock? Do you remember if he did anything to the rear shock?
He did. I'm not I can't remember offhand what he did, but I can send you the details of the bike.
Yeah, I would love to see that. That's something that I just happened to miss. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for answering a bunch of the questions. We got some people here that do remember the Summit Point. They said it was awesome. It said, and then we got one from Mithun Mukherjee. Are you guys still putting Varta batteries in the new bikes out of Texas? Here's some very, very hair-splitting questions here.
I think they have different batteries.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's awesome. Well,
I think I'm in the warehouse. This is a marketing lady.
I know.
But I do think that they put different batteries in them.
Well, that's cool. But they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right?
I gotta get up on my technical data. Like I mean, I know how to change oil. Where my fiance and I work on bikes all the time. He's teaching me how to do everything. But fine, guys. I hear the ADVMoto audience. I have to get more technically inclined. So I hear you. I'm listening. Next time, if Carl has me on the show, I will have a lot more technical know-how for all of you guys.
Awesome. I think that would be really cool. But hells yeah, cool shades. I'll put these on just for now, just to prove that I have them. Although it's hard for me to operate with them, but I will do my best. Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'll keep them on.
I think they look great, Carl. I think we just look.
You think so?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. We should do it. All right, that's cool. I will give it a shot. But this is a wonderful time to go ahead and introduce our next guest. He's a young bloke from the UK who set out not to only ride around the world but also tried to be the youngest person to do so at the ripe old age of 22 and more Himalayan saddle time than most of us could imagine. Everyone please welcome Jack Groves, aka BritOnaBike. He will pop in here very shortly.
I think he's scared.
Dun, 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 dun. There he is. There he is. And he's muted. And he's muted.
Hello.
There. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm following your lead.
Yeah. Yo, this is like wear our sunglasses at night.
Yeah, I can't see. I can't see
ADVMoto
anything.
Live. You can't see anything?
No.
Yeah. Well, hey man, why don't you tell everybody where you at?
So I'm currently in the Incan capital of Cuzco. It's about 3,500 meters up. So just walking up a flight of stairs is a bit of an effort. As you can see behind me, it's yeah, you've got a bit of a cityscape there. I have been here since March 16th. So I'm on my 102nd day in lockdown.
102nd day in lockdown. Boy, man. I mean, so where should you be now? Like if all this craziness hadn't happened, where should you be now?
Around your neck of the woods would have been the ideal scenario. Yeah, so my original sort of route plan was looking at roughly, Jan, Feb, early March to South America, and then heading into Central America in May, and then hopefully up near the US West Coast in June, July time. So I'm, to say the least, a little bit behind schedule. Thank you.
Well, right on. Right. Well, so you've set out to break the world record for the youngest person to ride around the world by motorcycle. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, that's cool. What is the record and who currently holds it?
So the record currently stands, without getting too technical, it's just under 24 years old. And the current holder is a guy called Henry Crew, who did it on a Ducati Scrambler. He went around the world on a Ducati Scrambler in 2018. I think he got back in May 2019. Yeah, just before I left, May 2019. And then the person before that was another Brit, another bloke called Kane Avellano, and he's the guy that inspired me. So yeah, it seems to be like a bit of a British wrap up at the moment. We need to get some more people involved.
All right, well, Jack, this is a question, man, that I'm sure you are certified to answer for all of the people in the UK, and that is, why do the British love adventure riding so much?
Despite the fact
is it the island or what?
I think it's an interesting one. It's because we've got Europe on our doorstep is probably a big reason. Lots of there's fantastic adventure riding. I think we'll get onto it later about some of the questions, some of my takeaways from the trip. But having Europe on the doorstep, having the Trans-European trails, some of the amazing riding you can do in the Balkans and Spain. Some of this riding in Spain and Portugal alone is fantastic. And then if you want to drop over to Morocco and start doing some of the sort of the Atlas Mountains and the Western Sahara stuff, that's completely accessible as well. So I think it's just we've grown up. The history of bikes in the UK is massive. Norton, Triumph, Enfield. You've got some real history there in terms of the brands. So yeah, I don't have a precise answer for you, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it was only a half serious question, but yeah, I think there is a ton of super passionate love for riding in the UK, and certainly we have a lot of friends from the UK that come over here, love to speak and everything, and I think it's pretty much awesome. Everyone loves it. Actually, we are thinking about having one of our friends of ADVMoto in UK in an upcoming page for our Far Rider comic, so that will be pretty interesting. So, how long have you been riding, man? And when did you decide to tackle this challenge?
Better question for you, how long since I stopped riding? But I think I've been on the road for about, it's coming on a year. I left on July the 11th from London last year. So in a few weeks' time, it'll be bang on a year. And where have I been?
Well, it was really more about like, how long have you been riding just in general, not on this particular trip?
Oh, I see.
But in terms of like, when did you start riding? And then when did you decide you were just like, yo, I think I'm just going to break a world record tonight?
Yeah, as much as it would be fun to just say it was a bit of like a pub, over a beer, I just thought I'd run around the world. It wasn't that quick. I started riding pretty much as soon as I was legally able to in the UK. I've been riding dirt bikes, Honda CRFs. So we've been down to France quite a bit with mates as sort of early as I could. And I've been riding them on sort of, family around the family place on dirt bikes for ages since I was really young. And then I think 17, 18, I passed my CBT, which is, I'm not going to bore you with European Union motorcycle regulations because it could send the best of us to sleep. But effectively, as soon as I was able to, did my CBT and then got my license pretty quickly after that. And when I decided to do the trip, it was pretty much when I saw Kane a few years ago in MCN News, which is, I'm not sure if you guys got that in the States. Do you have MCN?
Yeah.
It's probably an American thing. I don't know why I'm trying to claim MCN.
No, it's a British thing, but we get it here.
So MCN a few years ago put out the article about Kane Avellano's round the world trip. And I remember I was up in Scotland actually with a few friends. And I remember just sitting in a pub over fish and chips. I mean, you couldn't get any more British than that, really. And we basically just had this chat. That's pretty achievable. And I was the one that was really gunning for it. And I could tell that they were, slightly lukewarm to say the least. And I pretty much decided there and then that for the next 3 years of my life, while I was at university in London, I would be saving up. I'd be working, putting money aside and time aside for that year after uni when I could make it happen. So when did the idea come? Probably about 2017, 2017, I had the idea.
Oh, wow. So it's not something that you just kind of did spur of the moment. I mean, you've always had an aspiration to do this.
No, it costs money. Like, it's not, it's not, right. I should probably say actually for people watching, I'm not sponsored by anybody. So Bri isn't funneling me cash to say the right things.
I tried to, but he says no.
All these principles.
It takes as anyone. I think pretty much anyone who's in the ADV market thinks about the big trip, and I probably just thought about it at a younger age. But yeah, it takes time to sort of build the funds up, to think about the route, to plan, to think about bikes, and then to make it happen. So yeah, it's about 3 years. 3 years.
Awesome. So how did you decide on the route, and how much of it have you done?
How did I decide on the route? I just got a big world map to start with. And then pretty much, you obviously, if you're going to do a round the world trip, your main concern is you go all the way through Ukraine and Russia and do the sort of the Charlie Borman, Ewan McGregor long way round trip, which basically involves spending months of your time in Siberia. I have to say I didn't float my boat massively at the start. I didn't fancy spending 3 months going through Siberia on the Road of Bones. So from then on, if you're going to go via sort of the Malaysia-Singapore route, you've got 3 options. You go through either Russia, you go through Iran, or you go through China. At the time, the Russian visa is just really tricky because they give you set dates. So that was sort of ruled out. The Iranian side of things, it was at the time when the Iranians were nicking our tankers and then we were nicking the Iranian tankers, and it was all just a little bit geopolitically sketchy. So I wasn't keen on being a hostage in Tehran for too long. So yeah, pretty much my choices narrowed down to Central Asia and China. So I did Europe, Turkey, through the Caucasus, Georgia, Azerbaijan, a ferry across the Caspian Sea, which was really interesting. And then you enter Central Asia, so Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, anything with the stan on the end, pretty much. And then into China. And then, from China, Xinjiang, which is, I'm not sure if anyone knows, you probably do, a bit of a police state at the moment. So that was a really quite harrowing experience, actually. I went through with 2 Americans on Africa Twins. So Himalayan Africa Twins.
Oh, that's cool.
That was fun.
So China is my stomping grounds
Yes.
for the ADV world, and I spent some time out in Xinjiang. Which areas did you go to?
So we crossed the border from Kyrgyzstan at what's the pass called? It's got some really wacky name. Toragat.
Kundrab?
Toragat Pass. There's like Urkestam down in Tajikistan, and we crossed at Toragat at Kyrgyzstan, which I think is the second or third highest border.
Okay.
And then from there we went to Kashgar. Spent a week in Kashgar, getting a Chinese driving license, Chinese number plates.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an intense week of Chinese bureaucracy and being followed by police cars because they thought.
Yes. Yeah. So were you guys on your own, or were you escorted the whole time?
So it's impossible, as far as I understand. You may have a different view on this, but as far as when I was looking at it, it was the case. You can't drive through Xinjiang or Tibet, which are obviously both autonomous regions.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yes, without a guide. You can't go through by yourself. So we had to have a guide, and it was myself on the Himalayan. It was an Irish Hong Kong, which is an amazing nationality. An Irish Hong Konger on a Honda 500X, CB500X, and then two Americans on the Africa Twins. So yes, that was a group.
And you guys just met at the pass?
Exactly.
Down there, you guys were just like hanging out and being like, "Oh, chill, other motorcyclists at this heavily militarized border."
Do you want to come through Xinjiang with me?
Yeah. So we're just about ready to roll through this area. You want to join us? Is that what happened?
As awesome as that would be, unfortunately, no. It was preordained on Horizons Unlimited, or I think it was a Facebook group, China Transit for Overlanders, which is a really niche Facebook group, which I'd recommend joining for just general interest, because it's just quite an interesting feed going on. So we all met on there, and then sorted the whole guide thing out all online beforehand, and then met in a Kyrgyzstan yurt camp about 20k from the border, which was absolutely freezing.
Yeah, it's because you're at high altitude up there and it's dry.
Yes.
Yeah, it's super cold at night. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So you basically went through it, or did you spend any time there?
So again, in Xinjiang.
Yeah, right.
So we spent, as I said, a week in Kashgar, and then when we got all our docs, all our visas and docs sorted, and the bike things, we then headed south from Kashgar, and that's when you get to a fork in the road after about 100k, and then lots of people then take the right-hand fork off to Kardungla and the northern pass into Pakistan, on the Karakoram highway. So that was where we actually turned left, which is where most people sort of head off right and just spend 3 or 4 days in China and get into Pakistan and into India as quickly as they can. I took the view quite...
Oh, you went the southern route around the desert.
Yeah, exactly. And I took the view that...
Around the Taklamakan.
I took the view that the Himalayan has been done in India pretty extensively, to say the least. I think lots of the output you see from people on Himalayans on social media and YouTube and press releases, etc., is very focused in the Leh Ladakh region of northern India, and so that Himalayan region. So I was quite keen to perhaps show a different side of things, which was Xinjiang, Tibet, and the highest region in the world. So to see how the Himalayan fared. So that was
that's awesome. So you got how many kilometers do you have on it now?
Miles, it is 33,000, I think. So 50,000k. I picked it up secondhand with 6,000k on the clock. So.
Oh, right on. So you got 30,000 miles. How is it held up so far? I mean,
so honestly, I think it's been. I love it for it's just a rugged, reliable, honest bike on iPad, and I think one of the big things will probably come to later on, you need bikes with all the gizmos on to actually go around the world. That's part of the takeaway. So far it's held up fantastically. It's been tested in literally every single condition you could possibly imagine. You've got snow blizzards in the Stans, in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. You've got 55 degrees centigrade days in Australia, the hottest day of the year, bushfires in Australia, deserts in Tajikistan. So it's been everywhere. And I have to say, it's,
Wow.
you hear if you ask any rider who does a round the world trip, is your bike had any problems? Every bike has niggles, but the clutch, the engine, everything is held up amazingly well. So it's a thumbs up from me.
Well, that's awesome.
Thumbs
Now,
up for you, Jack. I wanted to ask, are you changing the tires and the treads of the tires? Like, so when you're in China riding in certain kind of, terrain, and when you're in Peru and all these places, are you changing out, the specific, tires?
So I have been through, I think, 4 sets of tires. I started on the Pirelli, the MT60s, which come stock in the UK. I'm not sure about the US. And I think I've been through then Avon Trail Riders, and then Heidenau's, Metzeller's. I think I've been through the whole scope of apart from the Mitas, I think, the whole scope of tyres that fit on the bike. And I generally I swap them out, when I've got a good Enfield dealer that I can get source good tyres at, which obviously between Turkey and Thailand, it's a bit of a continental-sized gap in the whole dealer support, unless you go over the Himalayas to India. So, I think I changed them in Thailand the first time. Yeah, I think the Pirelli's got me. I think the Pirelli and the Avon got me all the way to Thailand, and then I changed them for maybe the Pirellis again, and then in Perth in Australia, maybe the Heidenau's, and then the Metzlers in Sydney. I can't remember, but I've been through 4 sets.
do you have a favorite tire? Like, is there a tire you're just like, man, these things are just awesome on here?
I love it when people get really into the tires. Yeah. Because you find people, especially on these Himalayan forums, that have got some really, set views. And if anyone goes against it, you've just basically committed heresy. I'm not massively partial to one. I'm not a huge fan of the MT60s that come stock. So that's probably a bad thing to say. So Bri will dock my money for that.
No monopoly for you today.
I think I'd probably say the Metzlers were the most impressive in terms of, they've just been abused on road, off road, dirt tracks, big potholes. They've really held up in terms of longevity. They've been really impressive. So, fantastic. So I need to get my own cleaner in the background.
Sorry, my fiance and my dad are having a blast. All right. I actually locked them in the basement, and then they heard your voice, that British accent, and they just broke free. It's really awkward.
Yeah, they just had to bust in. They just had to bust into the scene.
I have another question. Sorry, Carl, I'll cut you off again.
No, okay, go ahead.
How do you feel when it comes to having to make changes or do services on your motorcycle yourself? Is there basic stuff that you feel comfortable doing, but other stuff that you feel like, it's important to go to a dealer and get done? Fantastic question. I think,
as you touched on probably earlier, the accessibility of the Himalayan was another massive, massive plus for me. I think anyone weighing up buying a Himalayan new, I bought it second hand, but if you're weighing up buying it new, you have the same dilemma as me, which is you've got the BMW, you've got the Honda, you've got the Himalayan. The massive thing for me was that going through the regions of the world where the dealer support, you don't have a BMW or a KTM or a Honda dealer to sort of get his computer fixed up and start, hacking into the Pentagon for you. It was really important for me that you could actually stop by the side of the road. I'm comfortable doing oil changes, tire stuff, clutch, all the sort of the cables and the various sort of bits and bobs that inevitably will niggle and you have to fix. There's a massive forum, as you mentioned, online in terms of the Himalayan owners recommending things, recommending fixes and all that sort of thing. So I'm generally pretty confident to anything. Yeah, if you can ask me to take the clutch plates out in the middle of Patagonia, I'll pass on that, thanks. But everything apart from taking the engine apart and the clutch apart, I'm pretty confident doing. So, and that's a massive plus for the Himalayan. You can fix most of it yourself. You don't have to take all the fairings off or any sort of plastic gizmos to get to it. And then if you do need someone to actually have a look at it with a bit more machinery, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it at the side of the road. So It's an engine and a frame and a sort of a setup that people can look at, any mechanic can look at and understand immediately what he's looking at.
Well, that's a huge benefit when you're traveling around the world. It's no joke. Exactly. So Ian Grid Moto Peldonia says, since all three of you are Himalayan enthusiasts, riders, and advocates, can each of you share one of your funniest and most memorable moments with the machine? I kind of shared one a little bit earlier about that lady that saw it, but you know, like, do you guys have one, Bree?
My funniest or my most memorable moments? Wow. I think being able to ride the Himalayan in India. You know, the place where it was conceived and conceived. It's like it gave birth to the Himalayan. And one of my employees had gone over there with me at the time, Sarah Lahali, and it was just such a beautiful. We were riding along the coast in Goa, and I think that's one of the most fantastic moments I've had on the Himalayan.
Right on. Jack?
There's two funny moments that stand out. One was quite early on in the trip, doing the famous Glossglockner Pass in Austria, which is, for anyone who knows European roads, is up there with the Stelvio. Stelvio Pass is sort of the best roads in Europe to ride. So inevitably it's clogged. And I mean, like, every other bike is a KTM or a BMW. It is, you know, we're talking 85% level of density, KTM density. And I remember pulling over one of the viewpoints, and these group of riders pulled in, all on KTMs and BMWs. And, you know, every single one of them crowded around the Himalayan and were just asking questions and saying, so who's it made by? When did it come out? What's the CC? And all this sort of stuff. And they were asking, you know, you could see that they were like, Royal Enfield, I'm not sure I want to like that. But you could see on their faces that they absolutely loved it. I remember just the irony of these guys on these huge bikes. I overtook most of them on the way down because they were so heavily laden. And two up. I was just sort of buzzing around them, but it was a funny moment.
Jack, I got a question submitted through my phone. One of the people on our page wants to hear you say caramel.
Wants to hear me say what?
Caramel?
Like the food?
What on earth are you talking about?
You know, like you put on ice cream or like something?
Caramel.
How do you say it?
I say it like we say it in English, yeah? Caramel.
now he's all self-conscious about it. He's gonna do it like phonetically.
Caramel.
Caramel.
I thought you said Kabul, like the capital of Afghanistan. Kabul.
No, the food, like you put on ice cream or in a candy bar.
Yeah, caramel.
He's watching his pronunciation. I can see it. Yeah. Sorry, that was just one of my viewers' questions, so I had to ask.
Always happy to correct Americans.
All right. So you're done through most of your trip now. Unfortunately, you're stuck over there. You know, so hopefully, if you can, you know, get released from Peru shortly, then you're going to be making it up through South America, Central America.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, I mean, if and when things open up, the borders are looking. I've been on false alarm duty for pretty much 3 months now in terms of the Peruvians saying, it's all good, we're going to open up, Machu Picchu is going to be open, and, you know, you can just chill out and do what you want. And then, you know, 2 days later, it's no, you've got to stay in your room, you know, lock your door and just cry yourself to sleep every night because you're not allowed to move, to go anywhere. It's sort of gone, it's been a bit of a seesaw of just bad news, good news. But if and when stuff does open up, I'm going to be out the blocks like an absolute greyhound, heading north. Probably, Ecuador, Colombia, and then get a boat from Cartagena, Colombia to Panama, and then from Panama, you know, just blitz it through Central America, heading for San Diego like there's no tomorrow.
He means Milwaukee, not San Diego.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's where all the hip riders are.
It's my pronunciation of English. And then hopefully, you know, if I can get to the States before sort of winter sets in, then great. I doubt I'll be able to get all the way back to Europe this year because I just don't think it's going to happen. So I may have to take a pit stop in the States somewhere for a month or so. And
Milwaukee.
finish it. Yeah, Milwaukee. It's all running
Yeah.
up.
It's very pleasant here in the winter.
Okay.
Very, very. Yeah. They're like negative
Yeah,
60 degrees.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, you should have no problem riding up there in the winter. I mean, you got short days, ice.
T-shirt weather.
Ice on the roads all the time. Strong winds up there too. Got some serious winds up there. You know, all kinds of love. And if you ever swing through the Virginia area, East Coast, Mid Atlantic, where are you going to go back to the UK from?
So you guys make it really difficult to fly bikes. I think it's probably a post 9/11 thing.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
Lifetime of gratitude for that, man.
It basically means I have to go to Canada because Air Canada do this sort of super cool fly your bike thing. So I'm currently thinking Montreal, Casablanca, Morocco. That's currently the working plan, and then from Casablanca, let's poodle about a bit in the Atlas Mountains, and then get a ferry across to Gibraltar or Spain, and then on the home straight. That's the working plan.
Canada is absolutely beautiful, so it wouldn't be a bad move going up there at some point. I would say it's a little bit colder than here in the winter, so avoid that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, man. So, before you return home, I mean, do you have any thoughts or feelings about returning home? And you've been on the road for a while now. It's been this kind of like emotional ups and downs roller coaster. Have you changed as a person? And do you think there will be an adjustment when you do finally make it back there?
You're trying to egg me on to say that I found myself, because I will not say it.
No. No, I don't think
you didn't have a spiritual awakening, Jack?
Yeah, exactly. I've spent so long in the Andes, I've just sort of become
You haven't become a butterfly?
A reincarnate. But no, I definitely think that my perception, it definitely helps riding around the world when you can then look at the world map and it's no longer just a load of blanks. You know, you can visualize very clearly what Europe and Turkey looks like, and how the terrain and the heat changes from Turkey into Central Asia, for example, and the deserts appear, and then the mountains appear, and then the cold and the Himalayas appear. So it's definitely changed your perception of how the fragility of Earth, for sure. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff I've seen along the way, whether it be in the Himalayas or Australia. You know, you've got massive glacier melting in the Himalayas, you've got the record heat waves in Australia. So it does hit home to you that the planet, how small it is, but also how fragile it is. And also, secondly, it does make you appreciate quite a bit more as well what you have at home. London can be, like any big Western city, an absolute sort of rat run in many cases, but actually when you've been through some of the places that I've been, you can really appreciate simple stuff like having a Starbucks on the corner or having access to good food, having access to water and food on tap, good infrastructure, good transport, that sort of thing. Yeah, I'll come back home and I'll be a lot more appreciative for the stuff that I have back home, for sure.
Right on. So, last question for both you guys. I think it's already been about an hour. I know you guys have been awesome guests tonight, but are there any words of inspiration to share with current or future adventure riders out there? Bree, you want to go first?
I will, but then I have a question for Jack from a customer.
Cool. Okay.
I think Jack and Itchy and all those people are an inspiration. Is don't be afraid to go on whatever adventure inspires you, and there should be nothing that holds you back. Don't make excuses. Just get out there and live your life, and do whatever makes you happy, and find your soul and become a butterfly like Jack. So
Jack the butterfly Jack.
Oh wow, butterfly Jack. How did this go so badly?
Every time I email you now, you're going to be Butterfly Jack.
Butterfly Jack, dude.
My Instagram handle is now @Butterfly Jack.
Butterfly Jack. Train has left the station, my man. Train has left the station.
One of our best Canadian customers and a really good friend from the brand texted me, and he wants to know from you, Jack, what kind of weird hospitality of different areas have you had to, be a part of or get accustomed to while you're there?
Good question. Very good question. I think, one of the things that anyone who's been through several countries on a bike will say is that the two biggest impacts that have the sort of that stay with you for a long time is not the cities and the tourist sites and all the sort of the bucket list things that you're told to see in every country. It's the people and it's the nature and the landscapes that stay with you. The most interesting hospitality, Turkey was fantastic. In Kyrgyzstan, I stayed in some really sort of, weird yurts where the whole sort of, they're burning yak dung to keep it warm. You've got various assortments of testicles to eat for dinner, boiled in like big stew. Well, I'm pretty sure they were testicles. I don't want to just slate and smear Kyrgyzstan or the yurt community, but I'm pretty sure they were eating testicles at the time. And then in China, the battle was, finding somewhere to stay. For most people, and I'm sure Carl will say the same in Xinjiang, especially in Tibet, we did like 400k days, stopped at this hotel or guest house where the guide thought that we were going to be okay to stay. And they just said, no foreigners, we're not interested in having any trouble with the police. Yeah. We don't want any trouble, no police trouble. And I said, I'm offering you money. I'll keep my head down. I'll close my window and I won't go out. Can we have somewhere to stay? And they said, no. We don't want foreigners. And there was one day actually in Xinjiang where I think we'd done 400k and then we did 50 more k to get to the next town to ask 3 places there, no foreigners. And we did about 100k further on from there. And we actually stayed, if anyone's following the news now with the whole India-China border flare-up, we actually stayed in a disused Chinese military base because there were chemical leaflets all over the place and there was sort of, chemical military Chinese People's Republican Army pamphlets everywhere. We stayed in a disused military base in the Aksai Chin disputed region of Tibet, which is disputed by India, which is the whole thing is flaring up at the moment. So I looked at the map yesterday reading the news and thought, holy smoke, we were literally 50k away, on this really weird disused military base. So that was a weird place to stay for sure.
So it got turned into a hotel, or you guys?
We just got to the point. I think I actually lost the plot because there was myself, Tango, who was another Brit, and then 2 Americans, John and Amin on the Hondas, and we'd just been doing 600k days, absolutely freezing. Everyone was a bit fed up, and I just said, look, we've been through 6 towns now. No one said they're going to stay anywhere. I'm not going to carry on just going on until midnight to try and find something that isn't going to be there. So we saw this place by the side of the road, drove off the dirt track for about 10 minutes, and it was like a small U-shaped compound, which it looked like it had been left in a hurry, which was initially, it was initially quite concerning because there was chemical, vials around and chemical pamphlets, and we were thinking, is this like the site of the Chinese Chernobyl? That we just never told, that we never got out of the Chinese firewall. And we're just all going to just basically die of, some sort of horrendous poisoning in the night. But actually there were bunk beds in there. We got our sleeping bags out and we all just clipped up in this Chinese military base in the Aksai Chin disputed region. So that was pretty mental. It was not a hotel. There was no reception and no room service. Just made that very clear.
Wow. Well, that's some good times. It seems like you may have found yourself and not know it. You never know, man.
Butterfly Jack.
Butterfly Jack. Like Samurai Jack, but with more butterflies.
Just to echo Bree's inspiring point, I absolutely agree with her in terms of, the adventure. One of the main things I've learned and taken away, that you don't have to go on a round the world trip to have an adventure. It's not about where you are, it's about how you feel. I think someone told me that a while ago. It stuck with me because it is so true. You can be camping out, in the States, you guys have got loads of places, but in Europe, it can be in Slovenia, it can be in Spain. As long as you're in a place where you're feeling like you're doing something out of the ordinary and you're doing something adventurous, and that is all that is all what it's all about. You don't need a $15,000 bike. You don't need sponsors. You don't need to plan for ages. Just put some money aside and some time aside in advance and make it happen.
Right on, guys. Well, thanks very much for all your time tonight, guys. Hang around for a little bit. We can kind of decompress after the show. But it's been super cool having you on, and y'all keep on riding.
I'll try.
Keep on riding.
That's right. Well, all right. Much thanks to Bree and Butterfly Jack for taking the time to share their thoughts and experience with us. Best of luck to both of them as they tackle their own Himalayan-sized challenges. Watching Royal Enfield develop as a brand over the past 5 years, personally at least, has been a breath of fresh air when the options were only a few gigantic brands we all know and some we had hardly ever heard of. Royal Enfield had and still has an important role to play in the future of riding in the United States. It wasn't so long ago, by which I mean only a couple of years, that all we heard was doom and gloom about motorcycling. But really, those two-wheeled machines of ours are firmly embedded into not only our culture, but others around the world. More likely, all we need is more brands listening to what the modern rider wants and giving us options that we could not only get excited about, but also afford. So, whether you're on a $25,000 or $2,500 bike, ADVMoto will always maintain that adventure is about the rider. We want to celebrate a richer diversity in not only bike options, but riders themselves, each with a new dream to be realized and become wiser and more confident versions of themselves that are to be found around every corner. So, moving forward, ADVMoto Live will be off for next week and start airing every other Thursday, but there's more. We're looking to bring new video content to you on a regular basis and more diverse content. So join us right here on Thursday, July 9th for ADVMoto Podcast, where we'll be featuring a new video podcast from Nathan Schlabaugh, where we're going to talk about the KTM 390 and a minimalist tank bag from Giant Loop. Please check it out and let us know what you think. As always, your support means a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and visit adventuremotorcycle.com for more ADV. Until next time, everyone, ride safe and have fun.